we are in there for a lovely February morning. Brilliant. And it's another, as far as I'm concerned, another net success story, because what we've got here is one of my favourite animals, the real old Exmoors, which we now think probably are the ancestors of at least the mountain horse in Europe. And what we've done here is we cut tree fodder. We actually cut it in June, July last year, when all the nutrients were up in there, just like hay, and we stored it, we dried it, and then we stored it in a barn. And we've come out this morning to see what's happening, and you can see they really do love it. Some of it's already been stripped, even while we're setting up the camera. I think it's fantastic. The other thing we did this year, we're on this big learning curve anyway about cutting tree hay, as we prefer to call it, is we've cut different species, and we're just trying to see now what will actually happen, because we've got cherry, we've got oak, we've got hazel, and probably the two key species and crabapple, but the three key species then were probably crabapple, ash and elm. And I'm just watching to see which happens, but in actual fact they seem to like all of it. And of course this time of the year, in all seasons, right from early history, we know from the end of February to when the real spring comes is the really lean time, not just for humans but for animals as well. And there you go, they're loving it. They've stripped it, some of it's already stripped. Fantastic. So yep, let's do some more. There's one of the branches we cut last June, late June, early July, and stored it. And what's interesting is within a few minutes of putting it down, they've come in and basically they've taken off all the leaves and the leaf stems. Now it'd be interesting to come back tomorrow when they've had time to, if you like, play with it and nibble it, and just see whether they actually take all the bark and the buds off. Because we know this is an old practice which certainly was done by shepherds with their sheep, where they would give them twigs like this in the winter, even without the leaves on, and they would eat the bark and strip the buds off, because obviously they're full of nutrition as well as the leaves. And what we should have said, of course, is that by cutting it in June, July, there are all the minerals and nutrients, and one of the things which we still don't understand are the trace elements which would have been picked up by the fungi which are connected to the tree, which then give them and then put them into the leaves. And this is something we really have got to explore, is what is the nutrient value of all these leaves and twigs, because I'm convinced it's going to be different from even a real, true, organic, flower-rich meadow, which is obviously what animals like to live on. And we've now, of course, put them onto grass, which is usually in the old days would have been less than 30% of a meadow anyway. So here we go, this is true stuff. This is part of what they used to live on, even right up until the last century, because obviously horses were domesticated way back. But man knew to feed his animals tree fodder, and we've lost that. And I think we ought to try and get back to it. And of course, here we're just trying. We're going to see what happens over the years. Well, it's interesting to speculate, but what you're seeing here today is probably predates actually arable farming. Because if you think about it, man was a hunter-gatherer, then he went on, if you like, to becoming a herdsman, and at some stage whilst he was a herdsman, he realised that if he cut trees like this, presumably it would have been done in warmer climes when there was a drought and you cut the trees in the summer, but he actually learned that animals will eat this sort of thing in the winter as well, so he probably dried it. So this is probably one of the oldest farming practices after domestication, and here it is, a real thing. And look at them, they're getting used to us now, as they would have done in early days with man, and this is an old breed. This is one of the breeds which was bred by man for docility, because it had to march all over the country down the drove roads. And of course, if you've got a stroppy one in those days, you just hit it with an axe at night when it was asleep and ate it. So that's how they bred in docility. But look at them, wonderful animals. They are. That's a going right back to early man when he travelled the world with his animals.